Welcome to episode 150. That's right, 150 chances to laugh, scream, and wonder how the hell we're still standing in a world this upside down. And what better way to celebrate my 150th episode than with a Wednesday WTF, the only midweek therapy session where the medicine is snark, the side effects are outrage, and the prescription refills are unlimited. If you thought my first 149 episodes made you shake your head, this episode's stories are proof that the human race has officially jumped the shark, set it on fire, and then filed a lawsuit against the shark for emotional damages. Hey, first-time listeners, welcome. Wolfpack, you know the drill. This isn't group therapy. It's a spotlight on corruption. Masks off, hypocrisy exposed. Your WTF Wednesday, every headline screaming the same thing. What the fuck are they trying to pull now? Gloves on, let's swing. Let's dive in. I've got a lot to share with you this episode. All right, let me start with something so absurd it feels like satire. But nope, it's real life. Donald Trump is suing the New York Times for, wait for it, $15 billion. That is not a lawsuit. That is a ransom note from a Bond villain who ran out of cat food for his white Persian. The number is cartoonish, the math is imaginary, but the attack is deadly serious. In an assault on press freedom wrapped in comedy gold. This one's the perfect WTF icebreaker. It will make you laugh, then remind you why we are all screaming into the void. So Trump is suing the New York Times for $15 billion. $15 billion. That is not a legal claim. That is a man holding up the Constitution with a water gun and shouting, "Stick 'em up." It's justice by ransom note. It's extortion dressed in a bad tie. The case? Filed in Florida because, of course, where else do you take a circus but the state that already runs on cotton candy and lawsuits? Trump's furious about a book called Lucky Loser and Times, articles from before the 2024 election. Donald says they lied about his wealth, his businesses, his background, even his fake catchphrase career on The Apprentice. Translation, they told the truth. And Trump treats the truth like garlic to a vampire. The Times called the lawsuit meritless. That's newspaper code for, are you out of your mind? And legal experts piled on too. Because here's the deal. If you're a public figure, you can't just sue because somebody hurt your feelings. You have to prove actual malice, that they knew they were lying. Good luck with that, Donald, when your entire resume looks like an episode of Jerry Springer. And here's the trick. Winning doesn't matter. The game is punishment by process. Bleed the newsroom dry, drown reporters in paperwork, force depositions. Make every journalist think twice before printing a fact. The lawsuit is not the weapon. The lawsuit is the threat. Trump doesn't have to win. He just has to scare the hell out of you. And it's a rerun from Donald. He's filed billion-dollar lawsuits against ABC, 60 Minutes, the Wall Street Journal. They get tossed. They get settled. They go nowhere. But the pattern is clear. Write something true, and you'll get sued into the Stone Age by a man who thinks subpoenas are a golf club. By the way, late breaking news while I was recording this, Jimmy Kimmel is gone. That's right. ABC was pressured by Donald Trump that he would pull their licenses if they didn't remove Kimmel. Well, ABC listened to Donald, and they suspended Jimmy Kimmel's show indefinitely. So Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel are now on the sidelines because of pressure from Donny Boy. And the cherry on top of all this, Trump's claiming reputational harm in this $15 billion lawsuit because the stock price of his own media company dropped. That's like me suing Domino's because my cholesterol went up. That's not defamation. That's reality tapping you on the shoulder with a frying pan. So yes, laugh at the number. 15 billion is absurd. Laugh at the theater, but don't laugh at the strategy. This is intimidation with a filing fee. And if it works, journalism won't just die in darkness. It'll choke on a stack of legal briefs while the clown at the center screams, "Victory!" Step right up, folks. The circus is back in town. The Senate grilled Kash Patel, and what do we get? Patel barking at senators, dodging every question, and acting like admitting a mistake would cause Patel's head to explode. This wasn't testimony. It was a sideshow. A man juggling arrogance, denial, and volume under the world's ugliest big top. Pure absurdity and pure fuel for a WTF Wednesday. Kash Patel walked into a Senate hearing and turned it into a circus. And Patel was the ringleader. From the first question, Patel was on the attack, snapping at senators, rolling his eyes, and turning every exchange into a shouting match. The committee wanted answers on his role in the Trump administration and his time as a loyal enforcer in the MAGA orbit. Now, what they got instead was Patel sneering at the entire process, tossing insults at senators, and insisting he had done nothing wrong. Ever. The man treated, "Do you admit any mistakes?" like it was a trapdoor on the Senate floor. Cory Booker went at him hard, accusing Patel of generational destruction of the nation's premier law enforcement agency. Patel didn't blink. He barked back as if the accusation was a compliment. Then came Adam Schiff, pressing him on firings and oversight. Patel's response? He called Schiff a political buffoon right there in the middle of a Senate hearing. And one of the most absurd moments of the day, Patel was grilled for prematurely claiming that Charlie Kirk's shooter had been caught before there was any arrest. Instead of admitting the obvious mistake, Patel doubled down. At one point, senators pressed him on conflicting accounts and statements he made that do not match sworn records. Patel did not explain. He barked back, accused them of bad faith, and doubled down. It was the political version of a toddler with chocolate all over his face screaming, "I didn't eat the cookies!" And the absurdity did not stop. Patel shouted over questions, talked past the clock, tried to flip the tables, and accused senators of being the liars, the cheats, the ones undermining America. Picture it. A witness summoned for oversight, turning around and putting the senators on trial. That is not testimony. That is a one-man filibuster with a megaphone. Here's the truth under the circus tent. Kash Patel is not just defending himself. He is defending the Trump brand of politics and never apologize, never admit error, always attack. The louder you yell, the more it looks like you're winning. And in that room, it was less about fact-finding and more about who could dominate the soundbite for tonight's news. Now, the tragedy is the Senate let it happen. They let the performance go on. They gave Patel the stage, and he delivered a show. Patel was arrogant, loud, contemptuous. This was supposed to be oversight of government power. Instead, it was a clown show with microphones. So yes, laugh at the absurdity. A grown man acting like accountability is kryptonite. But do not miss the danger. If Kash Patel can turn oversight into theater and walk out unscathed, then the message is clear. For Trump people, hearings are not about truth. They are about spectacle. And every time the circus leaves town without consequences, it rolls right back in stronger. Da, 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 da. And if the Senate circuit wasn't enough, the Trump Justice Department now running what looks like a revenge tour under Attorney General Pam Bondi. Picture it. Loyalty tests straight out of Survivor. Only the prize isn't $1 million. It's whether you get to keep your job or your funding. This isn't Law & Order. It's reality TV where justice gets voted off the island. Welcome to DOJ Trump Edition. The Trump Justice Department under Pam Bondi isn't acting like the nation's top law enforcement agency. It's acting like a mob crew on a road trip. Call it the revenge tour. Instead of protecting citizens, they're targeting Trump's political enemies and gutting programs that help crime victims. This is not policy. This is payback. Here's how it works. Bondi walks into DOJ, and suddenly funding for programs that help survivors of sexual assault and domestic abuse is slashed. At the same time, whole new offices spring up. Offices built not to fight crime, but to hunt critics. That is not Law & Order. That is a loyalty test. And the way it plays out, it looks like Survivor DOJ edition. You want to stay in the game? You don't need to find an idol on a beach. You just need to prove your undying loyalty to lovely Donald Trump. Fail the test, you get voted off the island by subpoena. This is not theoretical. We're seeing subpoenas aimed at journalists, threats against political opponents, investigations opened against people who simply criticized the administration. Meanwhile, actual criminal cases, the kind that protect real people, get shoved to the back of the line. If you are a victim of sexual assault waiting for resources, too bad. If you're a Trump enemy, welcome to priority service. The absurdity is right in your face. Imagine the Department of Justice, the place with the motto, qui pro domina justitiae sequitur, who prosecutes on behalf of justice, turning into who prosecutes on behalf of Donald Trump. This is where we are. Now laugh at the image of Bondi hosting reality TV inside DOJ, handing out immunity roses like it's The Bachelor. But don't lose sight of the real damage. Every time the nation's top law enforcement agency gets twisted into a personal hit squad, the line between democracy and dictatorship fades a little more. So yes, it's absurd. Loyalty test in the Justice Department, Pam Bondi playing Trump's personal bouncer. But the danger is serious. If justice becomes just another brand of Trump Incorporated, then we're not talking about politics anymore. We're talking about the collapse of the very idea that law is bigger than one man. And now, for the part where irony dies a slow death, the Department of Homeland Security is demanding that the media and the so-called far left stop demonizing Donald Trump. Why? Because they claim there's been a 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE agents. 1,000%. That number doesn't just raise eyebrows, it raises middle fingers. This isn't accountability. This is spin. And it's a kind of stat that practically begs to be shredded on WTF Wednesday. The Department of Homeland Security under Trump has a new demand. Stop demonizing Donald Trump. Yes, the agent that runs ICE, the agency with surveillance planes and detention centers, is now playing the victim. They say critics in the media and the far left are responsible for a 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE agents. 1,000%. That number doesn't just wave a red flag. It sets off the fireworks show at the county fair. Let's be clear. Nobody is saying violence against federal agents is okay. But 1,000%? That's not law enforcement math. That's fundraising math. That's the number you put on a glossy mailer to scare people into sending checks. DHS didn't show the baseline. 1,000% increase from what? From 1 incident to 10? From 2 to 20? When a stat is that round, that cartoonish, it doesn't sound like data. It sounds like a kid inflating a balloon until it pops. And here's the absurdity. They're not just waving the number around, they're using it as a shield for Trump. As if critical coverage of the president, a man who spent years screaming fake news, is the real national threat. Not the people who stormed the Capitol, not violent militias. No, it's reporters and activists who apparently need to sit in the corner and think about what they've done. This is what authoritarianism always does. Redefine criticism as danger, redefine accountability as an attack. When DHS says stop demonizing Trump, what they're really saying is stop telling the truth in a way that makes him look bad. And when they back it up with a number as cartoonish as 1,000%, they're not making a legal case. They're making a meme. So laugh at the stat, laugh at the idea of DHS with all its power and weaponry crying victim because late night hosts and journalists made fun of Donald Trump. Jimmy Kimmel, right? But don't miss the message. If the government can say that criticism equals violence, then every journalist, every protester, every critic becomes an enemy of the state. Hey, guess what, Wolfpack listeners? I guess I'm an enemy of the state. What do you think of that? And that is why this story isn't just absurd, it's dangerous. Because if demonizing Trump becomes a crime, then the First Amendment isn't a protection anymore. It's a punchline. Okay, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. And while I've said before I never liked the guy or what he stood for, I also said on the record murder is not the answer. And I have a full take on this. If you didn't listen to the episode about it, please listen to episode 148. But leave it to Donald Trump to turn tragedy into theater. He's now claiming, hold on. Trump's now claiming, I have to laugh, Joe Biden and the Democrats are to blame for Kirk's death. What the fuck? A pure WTF moment. That's not grief. That's delusion in a red tie. Donald, the delusional one. It's a grotesque blame game so shameless, it makes reality TV look classy. And now J.D. Vance slid in to host Kirk's show like this is just another career move. Absurd, opportunistic, dangerous. And I'm about to rip it apart. Donald Trump has decided that the death of Charlie Kirk isn't just a tragedy, it's a political weapon. Instead of grief, instead of silence, instead of even 1 second of humanity, Trump immediately blamed Joe Biden and the Democrats. Let that sink in. A man is dead. Trump is at the microphone saying, it's not the shooter's fault, not the system's fault, it's the Democrats. That's not leadership. That's a slideshow act with blood on the floor. I said it in episode 148, and I'll say it again. I never liked Charlie Kirk. I never liked his politics, his stunts, or his constant culture war circus. But murder is not the answer. Violence is not the answer. And yet here comes Trump, hijacking the story, pointing the finger at Biden and the left like he's handing out blame candy on Halloween. That's not just callous. That's weaponized delusion. Think about the absurdity. Trump spent years whipping up hatred against the media, Democrats, and anyone who stood in his way. He created an atmosphere where violence was always just one speech away. And now, when violence happens to one of his own allies, instead of looking in the mirror, Trump spins the wheel of blame and it lands on Joe Biden. It's the political version of setting your own house on fire and blaming the neighbors for the smoke. And it doesn't stop there, because in the middle of the chaos, J.D. Vance strolls onto the stage to host Charlie Kirk's show. Like nothing happened. Like the show must go on. That's not mourning. That's opportunism with a smile. It's Weekend at Bernie's democracy. Prop up the body, keep the brand alive, roll the ad breaks. Here's the danger. If Trump can take the death of a conservative activist and pin it on Democrats with no evidence, then reality no longer matters. Truth no longer matters. Everything becomes a weapon, even murder. And when murder becomes political currency, democracy is not just weakened, it's poisoned. So yes, laugh at the absurdity of Trump's blame game, because it is absurd. But don't lose sight of the venom underneath, because this isn't about Charlie Kirk, and it isn't about grief. It's about Trump proving that in his world, every tragedy is just another campaign rally, and that should terrify all of us. Okay, Congress is pushing a bill that would allow unlimited U.S. weapons transfers to Israel. Unlimited, as in no cap, no ceiling, no oversight. They're treating missiles from like it's Costco bulk paper towels. It's Oprah at the check line. You get a pallet, you get a pallet, everybody gets a pallet of weapons. All headed straight to Israel. The absurdity writes itself. We can't get Congress to agree on school lunches or health care, or even what day it is. But when it comes to sending weapons overseas to Israel, suddenly the red tape vanishes. This isn't legislation. It's Amazon Prime for bombs. 2-day shipping, except when it comes to Ukraine and weapons, right? Here's the kicker. The same people who scream about government waste, who demand audits for every food stamp dollar, are now shoving through a blank check for Israel's arsenal like they're expensing a lobster dinner. It's Congress giving military hardware the same oversight they gave their lunch receipts. Scribble it down, hand it in. No one's reading it anyway. What makes it even more absurd is the way they pitch it. This isn't about debate, diplomacy, or checks and balances. It's about speed. They say America needs to move fast because nothing says responsible government like a bill that reads, just trust us, we'll figure it out later. So yes, it's dangerous, but it's also laugh out loud stupid. Unlimited weapons for Israel with unlimited trust for a Congress that can't even keep the government funded for more than 6 months at a time. They can't pass a budget, but they can pass a blank check for rockets to Israel. That's not policy, that's parody. And that's how we end this episode. Congress, the same crew that can't agree on lunch, just opened the world's biggest tab at the arms dealer bar. Unlimited drinks, unlimited chaos. And when the bill comes due, guess who's paying? Spoiler alert, it's us. And Israel is the one walking out with a pallet full of weapons. All right, Wolfpack, thank you for sifting through and listening to this long episode. This is my 150th episode. That is a big deal, not only personally to me, but in the podcast world too. Hitting 20 episodes is something podcasters dream about, let alone 150 like I'm doing. Now here's the game. I'm building, I told you last episode, a giant map in the studio. First email from every state gets a shout out. And I will give you a personalized 1-minute rant based on your comment. You drop me a line, an email, and I will tear it up for you right here on the show. wolfpacktalks@gmail.com. Put your state inside your comment. Or 833-399-9653. Leave your rant, rep your state. And you know what? Back on my 100th episode, I got almost 0 emails. Same thing back in July for my birthday. That stings. So for my 150th milestone, could I please get some support from the Wolfpack listeners? I would appreciate it. I've got to be real. 150 episodes is no small thing. And sometimes when the inbox is empty, I start to wonder, do I keep driving for another 150? Or do I need to shake things up? That is why your voice matters. I'm here every week giving you everything I've got. But I would like to hear from you too. Let's see who claims their state spot first. We are starting from 0 as of this episode. And I would like to hear from every state. So if you're a listener living in a state, and of course you are, send me an email. Even if it's only one line. Please, not a text, an email. Takes less than a minute. And who's going to be the listeners outside our country to also drop me an email? wolfpacktalks@gmail. This has been A World Gone Mad, Wednesday's WTF edition, my 150th episode. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. I'll be back Friday because someone has to say the shit that no one else will. And apparently, that job's mine. Until then, Wolfpack listeners, stay skeptical, stay focused, and most of all, stay hopeful.